Welcome, everybody. This is DAT Poker Podcast, a special edition of the DAT Poker Podcast. We got exciting news going on. Today is September 30th, 2022. We are going to talk about what the entire poker world has been talking about, which was one hand on a multiple hour stream of the Hustler Casino Live, this big game, this 100, 200 blinds game with the story going into this was that Phil Ivey was going to play on stream, but it turned out to be a player that almost nobody has heard of before this, a female player named Robbi Liu, and Garrett Adelstein, of course. Is it Adelstein or Adelstein? I'm always, Daniel, you know this.
I don't put me on the spot, bro. I don't know. I don't know. I'm so bad. I've played with him. I've mentioned his name, and Adels. Yeah,
Gman. We're gonna go with Gman. We're gonna go with Garrett. Yeah. We're gonna go a lot of Garrett today. I think we're gonna go a lot of Garrett. But a hand that they played, which the entire world is talking about. I'm not gonna waste too much time running it down, and we can get into it because probably if you're listening to the show, unless you live under some sort of poker rock, you probably already know what happened. But as I said, the game is 100, 200, 400 with an $800 straddle is on, and the straddle the straddle is Robbi Liu. It's folded around to Garrett in the big blind, who's playing an $800,000 stack. Of course, he's always playing a bunch. He's got the 8-7 of clubs, so of course he is going to raise. And of course he's out of position against the straddle. He's going to make it 3,000. And Robbi, who's playing 130K behind, is going to call in the straddle with Jack of clubs, 4 of hearts. So she's got two pretty raggedy cards, but of course she's in position and there's a bunch of dead money. So nothing too interesting so far. We got $6,700 in the pot. Of course, this is a cash game, so they are real dollars. It comes 10 of hearts, 10 of clubs, 9 of clubs, which gives Garrett, obviously, the monster draw. He's open-ended with a straight flush draw to the bottom end of the straight flush and on a paired board, but still really big. Of course, when it's effectively blind on blind, he'll lead out for 2,500. And Robbi, with basically just the Jack of clubs now, which is a pretty key card, she calls. She's got the Jack of clubs, 4 of hearts as a reminder. We got $11,700 going into the turn, which is a 3 of hearts, and this is where shit gets wild. Garrett is going to bet out 10K, so he's going to bet out like 5/6 of the pots approximately. Robbi is going to min raise to 20,000. And after some thought, Garrett, gives it a look, makes his assessment. He shoves all in for Robbi's stack of 100K. And this is where things get interesting. Robbi thinks about it for a long time. She does what appear to be looks back at her hand, does a quick check of her hand, puts in a couple time bank chips, I think, or maybe just one. But after about, I'd say, a minute, she calls. And this is where, of course, the announcers and everybody watching just lose their mind. People think maybe the RFID reader is wrong because she has just called with Jack 4 on a 10-10-9-3 board for her entire stack. There's a discussion now about they run it once. Garrett's thinking he got his hand caught in the cookie jar. He might have to get lucky. He says, I'm down to run it twice, but it's totally up to you. She thinks about it for a while. She says, okay, we'll run it twice. I don't remember what
one thing, just real quick, he actually said, I prefer to run it once.
Oh, but, did he? Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he preferred, and she's like, no, she chose to run it twice, which is
she chose to run it twice. Garrett said, fine, no problem. It's brick. I don't remember what the 2 bricks are, but the first one's like a 9, so double pairs the board, which means Garrett is just kind of hoping that Robbi's got like pocket 5s, pocket 6s got counterfeited, and I think the second one was an ace. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it was an ace.
Either way, both times Garrett misses his combo draw. He doesn't even pick up a pair. Flips over the 8 high, of course, obviously fully expecting to lose the hand. And Robbi turns over the Jack 4, and everybody loses their effing mind. How did she call with Jack high? Not only did she call with Jack high, it was good. Not only was it good, she held on both facing whatever it is, 22 outs. I don't even know how many outs that is, but all of his pair outs, all of his straight outs, all of his flush outs are all good. And you can see immediately on Garrett's face, I mean, he turns white as a ghost. He does not know what's going on. The smile just evaporates from his face. He thinks he's up against, I don't know what he thinks he's up against. It's like some kind of pocket pair or just an ace high call. Maybe he knows he got called down light because of all the action that Robbi did, but he immediately thinks something's up. You can tell by his expression that he thinks something is wrong, that he's been done wrong by both ways, and not just by the poker gods. Yeah, and then it gets wild. Everybody at the table is sort of talking about this. It's kind of amazing. Most of the people at the table are kind of laughing, saying like, "Oh my God, this is absolutely insane. What's going on?" And now this is where the speculation starts to happen, and we'll get into the speculation in a bit, and we'll get into the theories and how probable each theory is. But after a period of time, Garrett leaves the table. And then it's not exactly clear to me what's happened after Garrett leaves the table, but Robbi does leave the table. Whether there's some speculation, I'm not sure whether she was actually asked to leave the table or she left the table of her own volition, but we see in the stream that she has left the table. So neither Garrett nor Robbi is at the table. And now what seems to be what happens is that there's a discussion that's off camera. And it's come to light that Robbi ends up giving him the 130,000, approximately 135,000, I think it is, that he put into the pot. At this point, they start to come back to the table, but now there's another argument. This guy, Rip, who seems to be friends, and we'll get into their relationship a little bit more, who seems to be friends with Robbi, starts tearing into Garrett. He could, calling him a pussy, calling him all kinds of names. He is freaked out beyond belief that Robbi has given him back this $135,000, took it right out of a rack and handed it to him. And Garrett allegedly said he would come back and play, has decided not to play. He comes, he very calmly kind of racks up. You see him putting his chips into his bag, and he leaves, and everybody is very confused and wondering what's going on. And immediately the immediate speculation is that I think a lot of people came to was, this Robbi woman cheated. How else do you make that call with Jack high? And then we'll get into a lot of the theories. But Daniel, if you want to rewind back before you started researching this topic, and the first thing that you saw, the very first immediate reaction that jumped into your head before you started, looking into it a bit more.
So we were all at the Poker Go studio, us high rollers, playing in the big 25K PLO, and obviously, people's Twitter was everyone was like, literally everyone was talking about this. And I heard the hand and what happened, and everyone seemed to just accept that it was cheating. And when I heard the hand, I'm like, oh, that's cheating. Didn't watch it though. So I was, under the impression that it was cheating. Then I spoke to a photographer there, Anthony Albergo there, and he says, I don't know, man. I don't think she cheated. I'm like, come on, bro. What are you talking about? Who calls with Jack 4 high there? It doesn't make no sense. So that later that night, I watched the video myself several times with my wife, Amanda, and, went over it. And there's just here, let me first say this. I don't know what happened. Okay. I don't think anyone's saying right now it's 100% this or that. They're really not having any respect for the amount of information that sort of speaks to both sides being right. So a couple things first came to mind, right? So if she was cheating, how, right? Well, if she was cheating with some sort of device that knew she would win the hand, right? What are the odds that device would tell her she'd win on 2 runs? Why would she run it twice? Like, what would be the purpose of her saying yes to running it twice? Her mannerisms, the way she was acting, seemed kind of flustered and confused. Like I tweeted, I played for 30 years and I've seen crazy shit. I've seen people in stud. I have open 9s. They call the river. They couldn't beat my 9s. Like, they just couldn't win. I saw Jennifer Tilly, on Poker After Dark. She checked back Jack's full in a spot where, made no sense because she was worried that Patrick had quads, right? He didn't have quads. But if he did have quads, people might have been like, what's going on there? Because it was an outrageous check, right? So ultimately, like, and the other thing too, like, I've experienced with this as well, is like, anytime you're going to actually accuse people of cheating, I feel like it's really important to, number one, be very specific about the method, and number two, have evidence and receipts to back it up. Rather than like, you cheated, but then, in Garrett's comments, he said something effective like, he's 100% sure it has nothing to do with Hustler, okay? Like the people in the production. And I don't know, right? I don't know if any cheat, but like, how can you make that claim without also claiming like, so this is what happened, right? This is exactly what, like, how do you know just because you're friendly with them or whatever? Ultimately, and I'll let you speak right after, ultimately, if I was in Garrett's shoes, I wouldn't have handled it this way for one key reason. Garrett makes a whole bunch of money in this game, right? He's a stream guy. He makes a shit ton of money. If he felt like he just got cheated out of 130, and he really, I mean, what? It was a coin flip anyway. He ran it twice. He just like, whatever. If he really felt like he got cheated, I think the play was to like quit the game, go backstage, talk to the people there. Don't make a stink about it. Because if you're wrong, right? Think about how that looks. We talk about the optics of like women in poker, right? Imagine for a second she didn't cheat. And she had to deal with that sort of like, again, let's just, if you're confirmed, if you're 100% that she cheated, imagine she didn't. Imagine for a second there's 1%, but she didn't. And what she had to deal with, in that spot is a lot, right? So I'm always extra careful with it. Now, I've changed my mind a few times because some of the information, some of the data seems like, wait a minute, actually, maybe she did. But then I wonder, like, why is it only this hand that she cheated on? And if it was only this hand, maybe it wasn't some sort of device. Maybe Garrett lifted her cards up and somebody saw them. Maybe she saw them. And in this specific hand, she knew he had 7-8 of clubs or whatever. All the talk later that she didn't know how to describe it. And I had that means nothing to me. I've trained and taught so many beginning players where at the end of a hand, I'm like, okay, so why did you do that? And they go, well, I did that because, I didn't want to get bluffed. And it's like, okay. And then I say, well, you had the nuts. It's like, yeah, but you never know, right? It's like, they don't make any sense. Totally logic. So the fact that Garrett could eloquently describe what happened doesn't shock me. He's a top pro. And the fact that she couldn't doesn't really lend itself to me to being like, oh, look, she contradicted herself. She said she had a 3. That's not enough for me. Like, it's just, if she was just like did make a dumb bonehead play, the justifications are going to sound ridiculous because there is no justification for this call. Right.
I agree. Like you can see listening to her speak, and this is the sort of problem that I have with people like Sean Deeb trying to get her to lay out her strategy, or people like Garrett trying to lay out her strategy. So like you're not talking to Ike Caxton here, right? You're talking to somebody who's a casual player who's been playing, I think she said like a year, is still really learning the game. A lot of times they say like you say, a lot of times players make plays that don't make any sense. I mean, I've taught people how to play poker, and they did exactly this. Like they call the river with no equity. And then I say, why'd you call? And they say, well, I thought it was bluffing. I'm like, yeah, but you lost to the bluff. And there's a lot of that. If you listen to Robbi talk on the Joe Ingham podcast, or if you listen to her talk on the interview, the sort of the monologue she does after, it's all based on the idea that, like, my read was that he didn't have it. And then the natural reaction to that is, yeah, but there's a bunch of stuff that he could not have it and also still be accidentally beating your hand because you have Jack high. And then that gets into the question of, oh, did she think that she actually had Jack 3, which would have been a pair, and not Jack 4? And that's something where the people who are really suspicious of her, I understand why they're suspicious, because she has flip-flopped on the Jack 3 versus Jack 4 story. So to sum this up real quick, the previous hand of the Jack 4, she actually did have Jack 3. So it's plausible for her to I've done that before. Like I've thought, like, I had the hand that I had previous hand, and you'd look back on the turns like, oh shit, I didn't have what I think I had. I had that hand last hand. I've done that myself. So that's plausible. But then other times she says, oh, I intentionally called him with Jack high. And she's been very inconsistent about that. So, but on the other hand, like, what you say is true. Like, she's flustered. She's not a professional poker player. You can't have the expectation that she's going to be accurately able to explain her thought process the way that someone like you or someone like Garrett, someone that Sean Deeb is a super experienced player, going to explain exactly their thought processes on this hand. So
there is some science. So there is some science to back the idea that in these, like, whatever, it's a traumatic moment or like a huge thing, where people's recollection of what actually happened changes, differs, the story morphs, and all that kind of stuff. This is documented, right? That sort of stuff happens. So one plausible theory, and this was kind of where I got to last night, and maybe it's accurate, maybe it's not. And I tweeted it. Essentially what I thought was this, okay? This guy Garrett, he's a really aggressive player. He's a bully, if you will. Not a bully in his demeanor. He's a super nice guy, likable guy. I mean, his playing style. He's big bets, pounding you, pushing you around, 3-betting you, right?
We saw the night before, like, he bet like 3x pot on the river against a guy with air. Like,
and he bluffed a guy with King 5 against Kings, and she saw that too. So imagine, like, let's just take a dive into her mind. We'll do our best. Garrett raises. She's like, fuck this guy. I'm not folding to him. I have Jack 4. Now the flop comes, 9, 9, 10 with 2 clubs. So she has the Jack of clubs. And this card is a good card to have now, right? Because she's got a 3-card straight flush, right? He bets. She calls in position. So far, as we said, this is, if I were to play the Jack 4 offsuit, Like I would have folded pre, but if I did, I would have called this flop too. I think it's a fine play to float here with the jack of clubs. Now the turn card coming, a blank, and he bets 10K. Like in my mind, I think she's thinking like, I'm going to make a move on this guy, right? Fuck this guy. I'm going to make a move. He's full of shit. I think he's full of shit. I'm going to raise him. But she only raises him to 20K, which already is kind of a goofy amount, right? Want to draw heavy, like make it 30, 35, or she makes it 20. Now Garrett moves in. And I think now is where, holy fuck, I just made a move. Fuck this guy. I think he's full of shit. He's bad. Not thinking like, is my hand the best hand? What combos beat me? Does he have the queen high flush draw? Does my jack of clubs block jack queen and jack king of clubs? Does he have ace high? I think it's just like total potentially, like this is one theory, just completely flustered by the situation, zombied in, because someone like Garrett, because of the way he plays, can make people do incredibly dumb shit all the time, whether they
and that's a lot of experienced players. He does this to experienced players, much less somebody who's only been in the game for about a year.
I've done it to players. I've made players do some of the dumbest shit ever. They called off with like fucking nothing because I told them to. You know what I mean? Basically, right? So I've seen crazy shit. So on the surface, like the possibility is she just fucking called and then is trying to rational. Because then at the end, she's like, well, what do you have? You want to run it twice. What do you have? I think you're good. I think you're the best hand. I don't know. I don't know if she would say that. Like, it just sounded like complete.
She did the thing where she said, can you beat a 3? Which implies that she thinks that she has a 3.
She also said, like, you put me on a 3. She's like, fuck no. You give me that much credit that I have a 3?
No, I think he asked if she had a pocket pair when he said that. Because he was like, because when the first run out comes, it comes 10-10. The first run out, the board double pairs on the end. So Garrett's hoping that she has like pocket 5s because that's counterfeited. He actually says, do you have like a small pair? And then that's when she says, do you think you gave me that much credit for her? Which again is weird because if she thinks she has jack 3, she does have a small pair. It's just not a small pocket pair.
So what I described, so let's say, for example, if she didn't cheat, what I described is almost for sure what happened. Okay. If she didn't cheat, flustered, made a crazy move, this fucking bully moved in. She's like, fuck this guy. I'm going to beat him. Forgetting completely about the fact that she has jack high and is just hoping that he's got some stupid hand that 5, 6, 6, 7 or whatever like that and makes it stuff. So that's if she was not cheating. Right.
And I want to expound on this a little bit just before you go on to the other side of this, because that's consistent with the interviews that she sort of did, to the interview that she did with Joe Ingram and Sean Deeb, where she says, I wasn't playing the cards, I was playing the man. Right. And we hear this a lot. It's kind of like an old poker cliche from, maybe like the 90s or something like that. Nowadays professional poker players tend not to play exactly that way, but that is like an old poker cliche and it's common. Like I read him for a week.
Yeah.
But
she also says something that doesn't make sense. She says, I thought you had ace high. That's why I wanted to run it twice.
Yeah, that doesn't make any logical sense from like a statistic point of view. If you have ace high, you're in trouble. You're drawing to 6 outs.
Like, I thought it was funny when she says, I thought you had ace high, and he goes, okay, and then so you called with jack high. Why then?
Right. Well, and she actually talks about this in the Joey interview. She says, I wanted to run it twice because I thought he might have ace high. And so the sort of idea, and this is again another fallacy that a lot of like amateur poker players make. They think that if you're behind, you should run it twice to try to maximize your chance of getting half the pot. Because if she is only up against ace high, if she has 6 outs to beat ace high, like she's probably not going to win if they run it once, but maybe she'll get half if they run it twice. Like the math doesn't really check out. But again, we're not here to analyze.
I think what she said or what she meant maybe was at most, I thought you had ace high. Right.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Most. So if you think at most that you have ace high, and like I saw Brian Rast, he put out a 12 thing tweet in, her mentioning the jack of clubs blocker. Like, so let's actually dive into that just for a second. Like, why would that be relevant? Like, it's kind of silly the way she said it. I don't think she said it in the right way. But imagine this. Imagine you thought that Garrett plays in this spot, only combo draws he plays like that. Right? Having the jack of clubs means he doesn't have jack queen of clubs or jack king of clubs. Makes it way more likely
or jack 8 of clubs
or 7 8 of clubs, right? Yeah. So in like obviously this is not how any human brain thinks about poker, but the jack of clubs in this case would be, frankly, one of the best bluff catcher hands against if she specifically puts him on a combo draw.
Right.
Now she's only dead to like king queen of clubs. That's it.
And you say no poker mind thinks about that, but poker's really complicated. Like, it's hard to learn all of this theory stuff, and it's very easy to glom onto a concept like blockers. Like, she's been coached by Faraz Jaka, so she understands the concept. It's very easy to take a concept that you've just learned and apply it in completely the wrong situation.
You're not wrong. Now, listen, I'm a professional, okay? And when I started to first learn game theory and how to use blockers, I got the blockers backwards so many times.
Reverse blockers.
Like, I have king 10 of hearts, and then I look at the board and there's like hearts there, and I'm like, well, you know what I'm saying? Like, I had it backwards. Like, the fact that I had the king 10 of hearts unblocked instead of blocked, and it's confusing, right?
Yeah.
So for a novice player, they hear the term blocker. Jack of clubs, as far as a blocker goes, it certainly connects with this board in a blockery type way, right? So it's like,
there's no doubt,
it's not like she had 6-4 offsuit. She's a jack of clubs, which is part of why she got to the turn and the like.
Yeah. But I did want to say, like it is very consistent with the way that I think that she thinks about poker. She thinks that is this game where, you soul read the person, and they have it or they don't. And in her mind, I mean, again, this is the not cheating version, right? This is like in her mind, he didn't have it. Yeah. So I'm going to call. Now, there's a question of whether she thought she was calling with Jack high, or the question of whether she thought she was calling with a 3. And I think there is a really big difference there. There's not actually like an equity difference, because they both have the same equities, it turns out, pretty much. But it doesn't matter, because I think if she did actually have Jack 3, we're probably not really talking about this. Like, it's just kind of a wild, crazy call but we've seen amateur players make calls like this. We've seen professional players make calls like this. Like, if it's Jack 3, we're not having this podcast. We're not talking about it. And as Ross mentioned, Hassan, if Garrett just won one of the runouts, we probably wouldn't even be talking about it. It's this incredible confluence of events that she happened to maybe misread her hand, happened to have, like you said, the Jack of clubs in her hand, which really kind of confuses things. And she happened to inexplicably win both runouts as a small dog.
Yeah. So there's more information too, that, like, again, this is going to go both ways, but like Sam Grafton mentioned that he played in a shootout with her at the World Series, and they got heads up, and he said her play is like totally consistent with what I saw. Like, she did some weird shit that makes no sense, right?
Saw some other people say that too. Melanie Weisner and Ronnie Barda both said that they're like this, like what she did. Yeah.
But on the other side of the coin, then you ask yourself this. So she's a relatively low stakes player who buys in cheap, and all of a sudden she's playing in this game that's like 10x times anything she's ever bought in for.
Yep.
And this hand comes up then, in this case, like, why was she? And then the whole thing with, like, so apparently this guy at the table staked her, Rip. And Rip is, I don't know, there's
married. Just enough a little suspicious stuff. Like, if you've listened to this podcast and you cut it off 1 minute ago, you would probably think, oh, Daniel and Terrence think she's 100% innocent. Like, that's not the case. But we're laying out the case. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think she probably is innocent. I think on the balance of probability, she probably is innocent. But there are reasons to think that it's just not quite right. The Jack 4 versus Jack 3 thing is one. The fact that she's now said that this guy in her game has backed her for part of the game. The fact that she has not played high stakes on big stream. Now, she says she's rich.
You have to ask yourself, why would this guy back her in the game?
Yeah, that's what
it is weird. Like, why would
he back this? Like, is she good enough, to play against Garrett and all these guys? Is like
Garrett and Phil Ivey are in the lineup.
So that's fishy, right? I mean, it is, you have to look at that and you go, well, there's something up. Like, that's fishy that this guy would choose to, like, how rich is he? How he's putting her in this game where she's clearly not a professional, and then he's the one who's very upset that she gave the money back to Garrett.
I can see that. I mean, I can see that as a friend. If you thought like your female friend was being bullied and for a fact that she's innocent, like, if you're close friends with someone, whether or not they would cheat, I would assume. And so, like, if for a fact that your friend didn't cheat, and then, like, high stakes pro guy talks her, intimidates her, whatever verb you want to use, and just hands her all the, not even half the money, like all the money. Like, don't forget, he had 50% or 55% equity in the pot. He just kind of got unlucky on these runouts too. Like, it's not, it's not as though she cheated, unless you think she cheated and she knew, like, the burn card, the next card, and the next card after that, which the running it twice thing is super weird too. I don't think it matters too much, but, like, you'd have to know all the cards. You'd have to know what the burn card is, the card after that, and the card after that. That seems so improbable. And you'd have to do this, according to Garrett, without the help of Hustler. Like, how would you pull that off?
I'll take one take that I really don't get behind is the idea that because she gave the money back, this is the admission of guilt. I don't buy that at all. Listen, it could be, okay, so it's plausible. It's plausible that she felt like she got caught. She's like, oh my God, I'm screwed here. Maybe if I give the money back, it'll go away and it won't be a problem, right? That's one possibility, and that's reasonable to think. The other possibility is this. She's in this dark fucking area, feeling like she's wealthy independently with her husband. She has money. She doesn't care about the money. She doesn't want drama. She doesn't want the conflict. She says, fuck it, and doesn't give the money back. My thought too is though, like, here's the thing. If I was a scumbag cheat, right? And that's what my goal is, to cheat people out of fucking money. And I just did. I ain't giving that back.
How many scumbag cheats have done this? How much money is Russ Hamilton given back? How much money is Mike Postle given back?
If I actually was guilty, actually, you know what? If I was guilty, for sure I wouldn't give it back because I know how that looks.
Yeah.
If I give the money back, it looks like I'm just admitting to guilt. So again, we don't know for sure what was going through her head. And if she was, on level 1, 2, or 3 in terms of, what giving the money back meant and how it would be perceived. But anyone suggesting that this was pure evidence, I think it doesn't work that way as far as I'm concerned.
If you think about it from the perspective of you're this woman who is not of this world, who is not a reg in the high stakes game, playing on a live stream with the man, Garrett, he's the man, the guy, basically the reason for the stream to exist. You're playing in this game. Maybe you misread your hand. Maybe you did something goofy. You did something goofy and won a hand that she says, I won this hand I wasn't supposed to win. I don't know what that means exactly, but she knows she got it in a pretty weird spot. She sees him super angry, accusing her of cheating, thinking there's no way. I could absolutely see how somebody would be.
Well, she said,
like, intimidated is the right word.
At me but you want to kill me right now. What would calm you down?
Right.
And like maybe in her thought process, what would calm him down and make the situation less heated is just give him the money back because I don't care about the money.
Not for games of this size, but I've been given back like just because some whale liked me, like they've given me back money from the pot that they won for me, like in a cash game, like just for no good reason. Like it would just be like they bet and I called and I was like, oh, that's good. Like and then they just give it back to me later, like because they like me for no good reason. Like there's you can't get. It's hard for like professional poker players to get in that mindset. But non-professional poker players who just like don't need the money and they play games for reasons other than just the money, like they do weird stuff all the time.
I think it's important too to note that like I don't think anyone really reasonably like looks at Garrett's reaction and thinks like, wow, I can't believe that. Like if I was in his shoes or anyone in his shoes, like that thought's gonna cross your mind. And if you're
of course, I don't blame them for sort of like being like WTF, like
right, for thinking like, excuse me, and then look, as you could see, there was like in the video, he's sort of looking over at Phil, looking at Andy, looking at the other pros, going, guys, like, are you seeing what I'm seeing here? Like, am I crazy here? Is this a problem? And I get like in the moment, him probably not thinking in terms of like, the what's best for the stream and how this looks for the woman if she's innocent. He's just been asking questions because he's fucking curious in the moment, right? Now, if he could go back, I would imagine the play would be to just get up from the table, go talk to the guys behind the thing and say, guys, I'm 100% sure, or like I'm 99.9% sure that she's cheating. So like we need to have somebody take a look in her pockets, do something because this hand, is incredibly suspect along with all the information that he shared, rather than do it in the way that he did. Because like, as we said earlier, what if she didn't cheat? And that just happened to her. She's been defamed. She's been like, realistically, her husband's like a lawyer, right? And apparently a really good lawyer. Like without evidence accusing her of cheating, you're liable. And that because that could affect his practice, right? If his wife is cheating people on a stream and he represents people and clients, like that could not only besmirch her name, but by extension, his as well, right? So that's why it's like in poker, and this is part of the reason we talked about, with the whole, Bryn and Jake and Ali thing, like it's really irresponsible to make claims that people are definitively cheating if you don't have the receipts to prove it.
It's also really like asymmetrical. And what I mean by that is, okay, let's imagine the world where she was cheating. Okay. So I'm on the side she probably didn't, but let's say I'm willing to entertain the idea she was. Let's say she cheated. We don't know how it happened. Electronic device. maybe she just looked at his hand while he was peeling his hand. That's a very reasonable theory. I think we've all accidentally seen people's hole cards before, or on purpose seen people's hole cards before in some cases. Let's say she did that and she knew. Well, he's got his money back, right? Like, not only that, like, they got it in as a coin flip. She won it twice, got lucky. She gave him his money back. He's been made whole. So in that scenario, like, nothing's harmed him. But let's look again at the other side of the coin. If she's innocent, she's not only down $165,000 that she deserved, but like her reputation. She's been frightened. She's had this terrible experience. I mean, she clearly plays poker for fun, and what I can imagine what happened last night was the exact opposite of fun. She's a newcomer to this world. She is a woman, which is relevant. And this.
It's important to say too, though, like, we talk about the new thing because she has new player vibes, but like, from doing some digging, there's like hand and mob results with her from 2010. So she's been playing for quite a while. And she's also supposedly like a 5-5 regular, Yeah,
I get that. And you can see the way that she handles chips and like the way that she sort of talks and tabletop. Like, she's used to the flow of the game. I'm not out here trying to say that she's like an amateur by any means, but I think it's safe to say that she doesn't play poker for a living. And that she's not at the skill level. I mean, just listening to her talk about poker theory, she's not at the skill level to be a professional poker player. Again, if she made this call with Jack 3, we would all just be like, oh my God, what a call.
Yep. And the thing too, right? So if you think about cheating, and I always think about this, like, how bad people are at it, right? But like on this episode, she called drawing dead on the turn. She had like another couple bad laydowns here and there. So she clearly wasn't cheating in those hands.
She overcalled on the river with a losing hand. There was like a hand where it was like 998.
So she clearly wasn't cheating on those hands. So that slightly leads towards maybe it being less likely it was an actual, if she was cheating, a device, and more likely that somehow, whether she saw his cards or somebody else saw his cards and signaled to her, right? Because that's another possibility of the cheating. Whether it was actually a device, I think becomes less likely based on the fact that in other hands, she wasn't doing that. And it's what's odd too is like, you'd think if you were cheating and you were at all competent, like, why would you pick a spot where you're
is not the
48%
spot.
equity and you're going to be flipping twice, so you're like doing just kind of okay,
and it's insanely suspicious,
right? Yeah, exactly.
This is like Mike Costa level of suspicion.
And this sort of scares me a little bit because, like, I know that if I ever had a device like this, no one would ever catch me.
Right? Because you'd barely ever use it, right? Like, that's the main thing, is you'd only use it once in a while in huge pots. I would
pre-flop and flop exactly as I play. And then on turn and river, just like look at it and go, make slightly better decisions, and no one would ever catch you, which is kind of scary. But generally, cheaters are like really greedy. And so this being the only hand we have, I think, is like more evidence in her favor. Like, there's no pattern here. Like with Postel, we had countless videos of all these fucking hands, and he obviously was crotch looking and cheating. And
he's so flagrant about it, and that's the only reason he got caught.
In this case, we have one goofy hand that could potentially be explained by just fucking losing your mind in a crazy spot, or seeing his hole cards. Like, so how about this? If she rubbernecked and saw his hole cards, is that even like the same as cheating in that regard?
No,
like,
because it's not. It's certainly not on the same level of having a device. Like, having a device is like absolute A+ capital punishment level. Like, because that's like, you have a whole plan. You're bringing people in, like you've got a whole scheme. It's like the difference between premeditated murder. That's, this is why we have like a different sentence for premeditated murder than just like two guys getting a bar fight, one shoots the other. Like that's not the same thing. Like, if she just looked, I mean, it's scummy.
What's also less likely about the device thing too, though, is like, again, I think we touched on this, but the device isn't going to tell her, by the way, you win both runouts, so run it twice. Like, it's going to tell her, you win the first run out, don't run it twice. Like, just do that.
I mean, yeah, like, unless you're just getting cocky and you just have the whole thing hacked. Like, you would just be like getting cocky, right? I think it's unlikely she cheated, but I think like
it might have been a bit as simple as she saw one of his cards.
Yeah.
Like, if she saw just the fucking 8 of clubs, and now she sees the 8 of clubs and thinks, well, this key might have 7, 8, 6, 8 of clubs. Like, that's even possible.
Yeah, or ace-8 clubs.
The theory that I've been thinking of, like, well, we've been talking about it, and based on like the table, Rip was sitting to the left of Garrett. He was like, she was on the other side of the table. I don't think there's any way she could have seen his hand. If there was somebody who would have,
I'd say like Yeah, you can see a lot. I've looked a few times at the way Garrett peeled. It didn't look to me that you should be able to see it from the 8 seat. But like, I don't know. Some people have really good vision. It's impossible. But yeah, go ahead, continue.
I mean, yeah, that's just
it's possible
if
that
he
like
staked
Rip
her and he was in a good place to signal her. That's just
possible. It's possible. Yeah, if cheating happened, it's either she saw the hand or Rip or some Confederate saw the hand. That's like the idea, the electronic cheating ideas and like her vibrating chair, all this stuff is like, this is like 0.01%.
Signaling to me makes more sense because it's like you can only
imagine
signal like he
you're in the
has
spot.
nothing.
So yeah, so it makes perfect sense. Imagine you're in the spot and you suddenly have this Jack 4. Your Confederate tells you he can't tell you exactly what this guy has. He can only say like
he has nothing.
Good hand or good. You see your partner thinking about it. So you assume that your partner has like a decent amount of equity, right? Your partner called on the flop. Yeah. They probably got like an ace of clubs and something else, or that, they caught some piece of the flop. Like, you're not expecting your partner to have Jack high anymore, right? Like, maybe they have a 9, maybe they have pocket pair, maybe they have ace high, like maybe they have like queen Jack. Like, you would think that they have a decent amount of equity. You don't expect them to really just have like naked Jack high. So you would give them the signal that says you're probably good. Like, whatever the signal looks like, you're scratching your forehead or whatever it is. Yeah. Now let's say you're Robbi. Your partner's just told you you're probably good, but you look at your hand, you're like, oh, I got Jack high. Like, I can't beat Queen Jack. Like, I can't beat Jack 8. Like, I can't, I can't beat King. I can't, there's all this. I can't beat like King 4, right? Like, if Garrett's just taking this line with like just absolute King high trash, you can't beat that, or Queen high trash. Like, just even if Garrett has trash, you have less trash. Yeah. A lot of the time.
One other thing too, and this again, like, depends which camp you're on, means two different things. Is one, supposedly she takes quite a while to make these decisions, right? Mm-hmm. And when she does it, she does a lot of acting. I wouldn't know if it's acting, but she does a lot of expressive head fakes, this, that. So that could be one of two things. Either A, she's genuinely confused and has no fucking clue what she's going to do, right? Right? That's mm-hmm. plausible. Or she's overacting to wait for a signal that's going to come to her in some sort of electronic beep. So she's sitting there trying to kill time, waiting for the card to get to the guy so that he can give her the information, right? Like, because it doesn't look like she's fucking doing any combinatrix or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't like that. I still don't like the idea of like I still think the electronics are such a tiny percentage of the time that she actually is cheating. But there's that hand that happens, I don't know if it's 20 minutes earlier or something like that. Garrett bets, he's got like the absolute nuts. I think he's got like queens full or something like that. And Robbi's sitting there in the river with, again, Jack high. She has like Jack 8 high. I don't know if maybe she missed a flush draw or something like that, but she like takes a really long time and says, all right, I'm going to let you have this one. And that was a weird one. Like, was she thinking of calling him with Jack high on that one? And then the next, so there's two interpretations of this, right? So the Robbi is innocent interpretation was like, she had Jack high in this hand. She reluctantly folded, even though she thought Jack high might be good because there's like 2 queens on board or something like that. And then 20 minutes later, they get in a very similar situation. She's like, fuck it. I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm standing up to this bully. I'm going to call him with my Jack high. That's the innocent interpretation. And the conspiracy interpretation, the she's guilty interpretation is she sat there with Jack 8 on the river, waiting for whoever in the world it is to signal, whether it's Rip, whether it's some guy, whoever's in on it, waiting for that signal to come. But the thing is, if it's an electronic device, like, what electronic device takes that long to read hands? I mean, the RFID hand reader is instant.
So now that we're talking, something else popped in my mind. Okay, so what we know of, she has results from 2010. That means she's been playing poker in some fashion for 12 years, okay? Mm-hmm. So if you've been playing poker for 12 years and supposed to be, you have some level of competence of understanding how situations look. Like, if you were cheating, right, you should know, like, if you took a random person who's never played poker before, right, and they're on the river and just waiting for the buzz to call, and they're like, oh, I have the best hand, call, 8 high, right? Like, anybody who has any sort of poker understanding would be like, yeah, no, I can't make that call because it's too obvious, so I have to raise or do something else, right? So she seems like, consider she's played this long, that she's competent enough to know that
better
making a Jack 4 call, like, if you're cheating, is going to be sus as fuck, right? So, like, I feel like, and this is where I'm giving her a little more credit as not a full beginner, because a full rank beginner you put in for the first time is going to make the call because they're told to, right? Where here,
Jack high's better than 8 high.
Yeah, like they don't need to know that. They just buzz, I win, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
The fact that she makes this call again, I'm starting to think maybe like she saw his cards or whatever. But the idea that this is this big grand cheating thing and that she wasn't at all prepped for even understanding how to do this. There's no evidence of any other hands. Like I just don't think, and I'm at the very least, I don't think there's any electronic stuff involved here. Like because it just does. That seems so far fetched to me that she would handle it this badly, having played for 12 years. Knowing that, like, okay, listen, if I get this information every hand, why do I choose this one? I could just destroy this table, left, right, and center, in other hands, rather than just like putting all my eggs in this one stupid ass basket.
Agreed. I want to hit one more topic before we go. We said we'd make this a quick one, but I do want percentages because I think it's important to talk about percentages because, as we said, Garrett Adelstein says 100% she cheated. I've seen other people say 100% she cheated. I've seen other people say 0% chance that she cheated. I think 100 and 0 are almost the only wrong answers
right.
because we just don't know. We don't have enough information yet. We may never know. I mean, hopefully, we know that the Hustler's going to do what they can to investigate, and we're going to try to get every camera angle of everything that.
I'll take 1,000 to 1 on either side. Anybody offering?
Yeah, I will absolutely. Yeah, 1,000 to 1. If anyone wants to back on 1,000 to 1 on either side, but I'm gonna we're gonna go percentages. I'm going to say the percentage, we'll just say to make it really clear, did she know his hand? And that's going to be the percentage.
Or did she know his hand or did she know she was going to win the hand?
Oh, those are different. Okay. Yeah, those are, I didn't think about it because that's really weird, right? Because I think, did she know she was going to win the hand? It's like
when you use
1% for me.
So these RFID readers, right? When they, if they're just signaling to somebody, they don't know what the other person has. They just know that this seat wins, right? Like you're going to win this hand. They don't necessarily tell you what the other person has. So she may not know what he has because she also acts too at the river.
But the RFID has to know the RFID won't know the cards in the stub. That's the problem, right?
Right. What I'm saying is when you were phrasing the question saying, did she know what he had? Right.
Yeah. Did she know she had the best hand, let's say, or the best hand? Quote unquote the best hand,
or that she was going to make the best hand, or that she was going to win the hand. Did she know that she was going to win this hand when she put her money in? Somehow? But
she can't know she's not going to win the hand unless she has, because every hand has equity against Jack 4. So
or unless she knew the run out.
Yeah. So you're saying did she know the run out also?
How about we phrase it? We should phrase it more clearly. Do we think that there was anything nefarious from her end in terms of either A, seeing his cards, cheating in any way?
Right. Okay. So if we include the probability that she just saw his cards or somebody else saw his cards, which I think is most of the rounds, I'm putting it in the neighborhood of about 10% personally. I think she's 90% likely to be innocent, and I think 10% that some shit of some sort went down. But I think the probability of that shit being electronic is below 1%. I think most of that
almost
is
like different questions, right? Because I think the electronic one is close to nil as well. But I do think that it's reasonable to suggest that she saw a 3 across club, if that counts. If you literally just saw when the cards were feeling that she
a single 3 across, that's sketchy. But let me ask you, what do you think the probability is that she knew that she had that she was for sure ahead? I guess we'll say.
I don't think she knew she was for sure ahead because her reaction at the end is what do you have? I think you have me beat. I think you have me beat, and that seemed very genuine. It didn't seem it didn't. I don't think she thought she had the best hand. Really, I think she just fucking punted it off and was help me. But
I do too.
I do think it is far above 10% that she may have seen one of his hole cards.
Okay.
At some point in the hand. So I put that. If it was potentially seeing one of his hole cards, I put that around 50% that it could be. Okay. But as far as any sort of mechanical cheating or real cheating, I have that, in your neighborhood, maybe even less.
Yeah, below 1%, I think. Ross, you got
listen, it's a crazy hand, right? We can't know definitively, but nothing makes sense. Nothing adds up. So we have to leave the possibility open that she saw a card. And if she did see a card, again, that isn't that's in line with the fact that she didn't cheat in any other hands, right? Yep. And that she's got no history of it. And that she was defending herself and making no fucking sense.
Even that, there's still different levels.
I saw that you fucking had the 8 of cards. She just said, you have shit. Well, how do you know that? Oh, I still have one of your cards. It was 3 across. Now you leave that part out.
even that's different. Like there's different levels of cheating there because it's different. Like there's the widest range or the most egregious version of that is like somebody else in the game told his cards or like some of his cards or signaled them in some way. And the least egregious is probably like the dealer was a little sloppy dealing, because I mean Garrett's in the 9, I think, or the 1, I'm not sure. He's next to the dealer, so a lot of the times like the dealers do struggle with dealing to the people that are right next to them without exposing them, because it's kind of like you're holding your hand like this and it's a bit awkward. That's a much lower level of cheating than somebody signaling. Like having a confederate, like there's been rumors of, obviously like people on the rail during the World Series like standing behind people and telling them the hand. Like that's so much worse than just being like, I think I saw a 3 cross club when the dealer was pitching it or when he was peeling. That's still so much worse. So, but you think that probability is like close to 50%, but like mechanical, a scheme, I guess, is like below 1%.
Yeah, like a sophisticated scheming cheat handled in this way, I think is very, very.
We're talking about vibrating chairs
but like when you factor in potential signaling or her seeing his cards in this specific spot in this hand, I mean, I think you have to give reasonable doubt. And I think the lesson we should learn here, all of us, is like if you looked at Twitter last night, there was far too many people that were like 100% one way or the other. And like, This is such a gray one, right? Like, I mean, one Melissa Burr was mentioning and listen, so she was saying, do you think Garrett would like make this up if he didn't think, if it wasn't true?
No,
and
I think he honestly believes.
I said, I 100% believe Garrett thinks she cheated. 100%. I believe he thinks that, right? And I believe that he's willing to risk his reputation on that. But that doesn't make it true. Like, that doesn't make it factual. That doesn't mean that is not evidence in itself that, a top pro got called in a goofy spot and can say without specifically saying. What he did say, though, is he ruled out that it had anything to do with the HL, with the producers. Like, if you don't know how she did it, then
he didn't even give a theory. He didn't really give a theory, right? Like, you shouldn't be taking any. And I do want to talk about that.
To go is like, well, so here's how she did it, or what did she do, right? So again, I heard takes on both sides, 100%, 0%, and this is probably the most dynamic and interesting hand ever, because of the fact that it's like the golden white dress.
Yeah.
People look at it and go, what color is that? It's golden white. No, it's
see what you want to see. Yeah.
It's like, depending what lenses you're looking at it. And I think anybody who's being objective here likely has changed their mind several times. I know that I have.
Oh yeah.
No, I've changed my mind several times. Every time I see new information, I'm like, I don't know, man. And that's what makes this so remarkable and so unique and so interesting. And much like most of these cases, I don't think that we'll ever get to the bottom of it, really, because just, there's no really incentive.
It's hard. It's hard. Even if we had perfect information, like the only one who knows really is Robbi.
She doesn't stick to a story. So
he's going to stick to her story. I agree with you. I think so. My 10% number is, I think it's like 10% or less that she knew both of his hole cards, but I do think I would trend a little higher for them. If you're counting things like I saw 3 across club, then I think that number floats up like to 20, 30, maybe even 40%.
Yeah, because we look at the hand on its surface, right? Just as a hand history, right? If you saw this hand history and you didn't see the people, you didn't see, this is the way I got the information first. I'm like, that's cheating, period. Mm-hmm. Right? It's just cheating.
Neither was my first reaction too.
Open shut case. There's literally nothing that needs to be said. You cannot make this call. It is not realistic at all for a player who's been playing for 12 years. Nothing of that is possible. So if you read me this hand history that happened online or something, I'm like, yes, that's cheating. However, when you factor in all this other live dynamics and situational stuff and everything, it becomes really murky. The running it twice, the puzzled looking face, the saying, I don't know if I have the best hand, confusion. Like, I found it fascinating. This is like
I agree, and that's why I really want to do this.
We should make a serial style podcast.
We did. We can investigation. We just don't have. I mean, we don't have the resource. Ross, do you have a number? Yeah, real quick. Do you have a number?
Pretty similar to you guys. I think, like in terms of like a sophisticated cheating thing, it's like I think it's like 5% that was actually in place at this point after reviewing everything. But I think it's much higher that it was like something that happened in this hand, probably higher, like 30%, and 70%, like what Daniel said. She just lost her marbles.
One last thing I want to talk about, and then we'll get out of here. But one thing I'm really curious about is how Garrett is treated in this game and in the poker community going forward. Daniel referenced off the top, he didn't like the way that Garrett handled it. I really didn't like his statement on Twitter, really just sort of doubling down on this and really just being 100% sure that she cheated and not opening or even considering the possibility that it was some kind of weird misclick or some kind of crazy weird read gone wrong. Like, he's played long enough to know things like that. I saw a lot of people even saying like, I think he'll come to his senses and give the money back. I don't know Garrett well at all. But obviously his reputation in the poker community is very good. Everybody's always thought of him as a good guy, as an honorable guy. I'm curious on your thoughts of how he's going to be perceived after this, especially since a lot of people are like us and they don't think on the balance of probability that she cheated. And when, again, what percentage probability do you think you need to be cheated to sort of like keep this money? Because if you didn't, you've done two awful things. You've taken money that doesn't belong to you, and you've ruined somebody's reputation. So your thoughts on how sort of Garrett will be perceived by the community going forward?
I think going in, the people that liked Garrett and admired Garrett will still do so. And those that maybe didn't like him for whatever reason, this is an excuse for them to like sort of pile on him. And I won't pile on him because, like I said, in the moment, it's very difficult to like be aware of like what the right thing to do is. But having said that, what you pointed out, his statement later, whether he realizes this or not, and again, her husband is a big time lawyer, and what he wrote, 100%, I believe she consumed for that. Right. So this is why it's so risky and so dangerous to call someone a cheater when you can't prove it. And imagine trying to prove in a court of law and trying to claim to the court of law, like, guys, listen, so like I 3-bet the pre-flop and I bet a quarter pot. Now she min raises, which isn't really a thing. And when I'm shoving there, her calling range should be this, this, and this. And the jury just going, doesn't Phil Ivey do that? I don't know. Like, it'd be a mockery, like in a court case, right? For him to be able to prove it. Again, and this is similar to the Postel thing in that, like, unless you have a device, unless you have an admission on recording, on tape, you have some co-conspirators who were involved or whatever. So him taking the stand, and I'm sure he's aware of this, or maybe not, but like, she can take that statement that is now on social media and pick a number, not saying that she'll get it, but she can absolutely like win a defamation case, even though defamation cases are very, very difficult to win, as we saw, with the recent one, on TV. But like, it not only affects her, right? Like I said, her husband is a big time lawyer guy who has, big time clients or whatever. And this could affect him as well. So he could be in on it as well in terms of like suing for defamation of character of them because it affects him in some way. And he's doing so without evidence. Like, you're not really, I don't know that you're really allowed to do that.
Garrett also
legally.
just tweeted this like 3 hours ago, which is, it's like triples down on it. The vibrating device in her pocket. He's insinuating that. So,
yeah. Well, yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I think Daniel raises a really interesting point about litigation. I feel like this drama is far from over. We'll probably learn more over the next little while, but we probably won't get a full resolution, but maybe we will learn a little bit more as the days go by. We're still only 24 hours removed from this. This was awesome. Thanks so much for getting together. We'll have more show hopefully this week. Daniel, wrapping up the Poker Masters. You got, I think, 2 events left. Is that right?
I think just the 50K after today.
Oh, there's just the 50K. All right. So we'll get together and do a pod. We'll do a wrap up of that and everything else that has happened in the poker world that was not just this one hand of poker played on this stream. It's gotta be first. This is the most amount of time ever spent on one hand of poker for in poker history, probably. But we really wanted to get it out. So thank you, Ross and Daniel, for joining. Thank you all for getting out, listening to this show. I hope this was entertaining. And let us know in the comments what you think about this.
Let us know.
I have to even tell you that.
Who's a bigger idiot, Terrence? Which one of us is the biggest idiot? Tell us in the comments down below. Exactly. I've been called a simp for my takes already.
A simp,
simping, bro.
I think it's so funny that the same people who are like would immediately go online poker is rigged are her biggest defenders.
I love the calls of like, bro, she just owned him.
Yeah,
she just owned him. And
those are the exact same people that be like, I'm so unlucky on GG poker.
Oh, it makes absolutely no sense both ways. No, she didn't just own him, and no, she didn't 100% cheat because she made that call. Like, those are the things that we can rule out. All right, guys. Until next time. See y'all later.
Bye-bye.
Guys.